What I look for in pictures which I intend to keep are interesting elements and their connection, which takes my attention and which evokes a feeling. I'm Manó Aliczki, I'm 39, I'm a wildlife photographer from Budapest, Hungary. Today, I'm going to photograph long-eared owls in central Hungary, and I talk you through how I take the photos and edit them. Firstly, we go to a town called Turkeve, the long-eared owl capital of Hungary. Okay, so we're pulling into the parking lot, and I think I already see some owls. Yep, there they are. Okay, let's talk about some gear. Today, my main rig is gonna be a full-frame mirrorless body equipped with the 2 to 600 telelens. I'm gonna have a very sturdy carbon fiber tripod with a leveling head and a fluid head. Besides the photographic equipment, what is very important is to have a pair of good binoculars. It is very useful to spot wildlife, especially here where the owls hide in the thick foliage of evergreen trees. So there's a long-eared owl roosting on the tree, looking at us with a pair of red eyes. So talking about settings here, I use auto ISO, so sensitivity is set by the camera. So with this, I can control depth of field. With the aperture, closing the aperture increases depth of field, and I can control how motion is rendered on the image with the shutter speed. So here it's a bit dark, so I decreased my shutter speed so I can get a clearer, nicer exposition. Composition-wise, it's very hard to shoot these owls because the dense branches obstruct the view of the animals several times, but we can use this for our advantage. For example, creating a frame inside a frame, and this can emphasize our subject within the image. That's what I try to do here. It's getting a bit chilly here in Turkeve. It's good to have a camo cover on the lens because it warms it up a little bit, and also it gives nice protection, and also it covers the white color of the lens, so it's harder to get noticed when I'm shooting wildlife. I'm locking on this owl right now. I'm a bit underexposing the image, and I'm going for more like a silhouette-like look of the owl. For the silhouette shot, I open the aperture to decrease depth of field and use a fast shutter speed to ensure I get a shot in focus. This I can further enhance in post-processing. What I look for in pictures which I intend to keep are interesting picture elements and their connection, which takes my attention and which evokes a feeling. These are the pictures which I consider good and I can work on later. This is pretty much representing what we see while we are walking around in Turkeve and Kisújszállás, because sometimes we only see the silhouettes of the owls. And I think I underexposed this image, but I'm gonna increase the contrast so I give it a silhouette look. I'm definitely taking in the blacks and the shadows. I don't really wanna turn into black and white because I like that it has a brownish hue here around. I try to emphasize the monochromatic look with increasing contrast as much as I can. The old silhouette is very definitive. I like that there's a nice diagonal shape to it with this branch. Yeah, I like it like this. It's very obvious that we have a long-eared owl here because we see the silhouette with the tufts. I like the triangular composition of the picture and the lines which are directing our view towards the silhouette of the owl and the monochromatic look. So we are here at Kisújszállás, and I've prepared my equipment for the shot at dusk when the owls will fly out from next to the beautiful church here. So I have my camera here and I switch lenses to a 24 to 105 f4, and I'm gonna use it on the wide end to get a nice wide angle shot from below. I'm gonna use an off-camera flash to light the owls, which I'm gonna trigger with my wireless trigger here. I'm gonna trigger everything further away, not to be there and scare the owls. So I use a smartphone app to determine the hyperfocal distance, which I can set with manual focus on my camera. So if setting for the hyperfocal distance, that's pretty much the shortest distance while the infinity is still in focus. So this is really handy to determine where to focus with a subject which you don't know where will be in the shot. So this shot is a bit tricky with the settings because it's dark, it's gonna be darker, so light will change and I don't know where the alls will be. So this pretty much sets everything up. I'm gonna use a very narrow aperture, f11, because that gives me larger depth of field, so wherever the alls will end up in my shot, they're gonna be in focus. I'm gonna have my ISO at pretty high, at 6400, so it gives a very sensitive sensor, so I'm gonna be able to use shorter shutter speeds during my shoot. I'm gonna think that the flash will light up at the end of my exposition. So ideally, when alls fly out, they're gonna pull a little light line while they fly during the long exposure, and at the end, the flash will light them up and freeze the action. Okay, I think this is a pretty good shot. I think this light here from the long exposure looks pretty nice. And the position of the owl is okay. I think it's small, but it's in focus. So yeah, I think I'm gonna develop this. So I think this is good because it communicates what's happening here, that the owls are flying out from the tree. Here's the church, so I think I can work with this. This is a bit too cold for my taste. It doesn't really give the dusk feel to it. I'm gonna emphasize it with pulling down exposure a little bit and increasing. Yeah, sky is much nicer like this. I'm gonna use a tighter crop, something like this. Let's see a before and after. Yeah, I think it pops. Even if there's less detail in the tree here, I think that's not really the point to emphasize that, but emphasize the connection between the owl and the environment. So I think this is cool. What I like is that there's a strong triangular composition of the church, which is drawing the eye. It's very obvious that the owl is flying out from the tree next to the church. I like the yellow and the blue, which are complementary colors. I think the owl falls pretty much at the same spot as the top of the tower, which is always giving a good balance to the pictures. I'm really happy with the shots I got today. I think these images point out how wildlife can take advantage of human environment to survive and can peacefully coexist with us. If you want to see the adventure that I went on to get these shots, you can catch that episode on the BBC Earth Explore YouTube channel.